Hey group members and classmates, I figured I would do a PowerPoint that also includes myself and the PowerPoint to talk about our final presentation. I figured it was a way to challenge myself since I'm not one to videotape myself or take pictures or give presentations for that matter. I figured it'd be a good way to practice my skills. So, my name's Haley Swanson, and this is my cultural narrative. I figured I'd start off with a picture of my dog since he's a big portion of my life. So, what is culture? This whole class we talked about what we think culture is, how we define culture, and what I learned through the duration of this course is can be summed up with a quote I have here on page 169 of Exploring Culture that states, "It does not have to do with people's personalities, but with how they expect each other to act in social contexts." There's not one definition that I believe fits culture perfectly. I think it's a fluid term. I think it can be defined differently depending on different people. And I have here at the bottom, culture is how an individual structures their life. So, how I structure my life and what I personally define as a culture might be different than all of you. So, religion, one of the hot ticket items that is greatly debated across cultures. My religion, I don't really have a religion, so I kind of find myself floating between agnostic and atheist. That's still something I'm kind of trying to figure out. I don't identify with any one specific religion, which I think is okay. Because I don't identify with a religion, I decided to read Terror in the Mind of God as one of my optional reading books. It talks about religious violence and the meaning behind the violence and how it relates to religion. So this book challenged me to kind of understand the mindset of some of these individuals who have committed great acts of violence and kind of defended those acts of violence through religion. So it's an interesting read. It's kind of a difficult read. I found myself getting very frustrated, but I realized that it was a good thing it challenged me to understand more about differing viewpoints that are different than my own. So here I have communication with my grandmother. On a different side note, I talked about it maybe in one of the first week or two. The statement my grandma made about how there's 6 of us grandchildren, I'm the oldest, that 4 of us were going to go to hell because we were not Christians. So myself and my sister don't really follow any religion. My 2 cousins are Catholic and my other 2 cousins are Christians. So I talked about how that statement kind of bothered me and how I wish she would be more supportive and just be happy that all of us are healthy. But on another note, I think it's a good realization for me is I'm very accepting of other people's religions because I don't believe in any one specific religion. I know that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, their own religion, and I have no problem listening to other people's opinions on it. It is when religions put down other people's religions that I have a hard time being honest through my communication skills. I tend to shut down and essentially stop listening. So I have 2 points here: open, honest dialogue and active listening. It can be difficult when someone's talking about something you don't agree with. I find that I tend to let my mind wander. I tend to kind of shut down and start to ignore what they're saying if it's something that I don't agree with. I know this is something I need to work on. I know I've gotten better at it, and our field reports were a good way to kind of practice this. In my paper, I touched on how I thought about doing one of my field reports with my grandmother about this issue with religion and how she kind of looks differently at me and my sister for not being Christians. In a way, I was kind of scared to do this with my grandma for this field report. One, she's battling cancer right now. I didn't want to have a dialogue that could be upsetting to her and to me. I didn't want to essentially end on a bad note. I wanted to just kind of preserve that relationship as it is. I know it's something, obviously, it still bothers me. I'm still talking about it. It would be something I would like to address if the circumstances were right. And then this picture I have here is me and my grandma. So, since I don't really have a religious culture, I have police culture. I think, in my definition, it is something that I can identify with and can be used as an actual culture. The quote here I have is from Terror of the Mind of God, and it says, "This need to create a climate of public trust based on personal relationships explains in part why so much of the efforts of groups within cultures of violence have been spent building and maintaining their own communities." I think this is applicable to the police culture as well. I know there's some debate on police officers and law enforcement and some of the things that have been in the media. I don't need to get into that. But what affects me personally is kind of the masculine and feminine synthetic cultures that kind of vary within law enforcement. So, as we know, it's a male dominated field. My police department has about 100 officers. There's probably about 10 female officers. Traditionally, it's a position of power. It's a very structured, militaristic type job. The picture I have here up at the top right was when I was in the academy. The picture up at the bottom is one from just on patrol. But it's a position of power. The power gets abused, which is what we see in the media. I realize being in this police culture, I want to change kind of the perception of police. I don't think, yes, it's a masculine job. I don't think I have to be 100% masculine synthetic culture inside law enforcement. I think there's portions of police that typically associate with the feminine culture, like caring for the weak, which is something we do on a daily basis within our patrol duties. But I think it's important to kind of humanize the job and realize we're not all robots. We are people too. And I think it's important to build that connection with the community. Like the quote here I have states, it's important for police officers to see the community as people and for the community to see police officers as people. I think that would help break that barrier of the perception of power and kind of the mindset of like more of a hierarchical structure. So it is a culture I identify with. I feel very strongly about it, but how I am at work is not necessarily how I am at home. So I do tend to have to be more masculine, more dominant, more extroverted at work, which isn't something I'm comfortable with it at work because that's my job. It's easy to do something when I know that's what I have to do. At home, I'm more feminine, more collectivist, more along those traits than the dominant masculine traits. So family and me culture. I kind of made this one up. I think it's important that there should be a you culture. You have to kind of identify who you are before you can understand interculturally and communicate with others if you really don't understand yourself. So I think that's important. The bullets I have here are honesty helps build a stronger, more trusting relationship. Collectivist, which is what I identify at home, although the police cultures tend to be more individualistic. Active listening, suspending judgment, confidence in myself, and finding common ground. So honesty helps build a stronger, more trusting relationship. I completely agree with this. I think being honest with one another and kind of being transparent with one another helps build a more trusting relationship with family and even with strangers too. We're more comfortable talking with people we don't know. If they're being honest, we know that we're not being deceived. And this one at the bottom here, finding common ground, I think that's really important. Especially for me, I'm pretty introverted. I don't necessarily enjoy talking to strangers because then I have to try to find something to talk to them about, which, yes, it's a very introverted quality. Finding common ground helps a lot for me. And it actually helps with my listening too. So if I find something that we connect with, even if I'm at work and it's someone that I just arrested and now I'm stuck with them in the hospital because they have to be medically cleared for hours. I don't want to just sit there and not talk to this person for hours. I try to find common ground and kind of find something that we can talk about, kind of learn more about each other and essentially hopefully trust one another, which I feel like would kind of work to my benefit as well. So I can use this at work, family, and learning about myself too. It helps with confidence in myself, especially to be able to trust other people and work on that open and honest communication. And these pictures, that is my fiance up at the top and then my family at the bottom. So finally, what I've learned. Exploring culture reminds us to take 3 steps to acquire cross-cultural competence: awareness, knowledge, and skills. So this course in itself has provided us with, I think, all 3 of these things and good opportunities to practice. I think the whole NCRP program as a whole really has helped me develop this cross-cultural competence, even if this class is the one that we focus specifically on cross-culturally, especially in our field reports. Another one I've learned is patience. Patience requires lots of practice. I'm not generally a patient person. I try to be patient. I feel like I'm getting better at it. That's a typical, stereotypical American person for you, is I'm very impatient. I want to cut to the chase and be done. So I'm working on that. It's something I know I need to work on, and I think going through these programs has helped me understand what I need to work on, what I'm pretty good at, and what I'm deficient in. So next, I'm never going to be able to change or accept change if I don't restructure how I think, feel, or judge myself or others. So again, understanding myself, what values are important to me, what I look for in someone else. And then I think that helps when I'm trying to communicate with someone cross-culturally or someone I don't know, understand and recognize when I'm judging or when I'm not really listening or I'm kind of losing interest. I think it allows me to kind of understand when I'm doing something wrong and be able to fix it mid-conversation without the whole conversation going to waste. Personal growth. Professor Erb talks about this a lot. This class, I feel like I've grown tremendously. I don't think any of my cultures or values have changed, but I think I have a better understanding of who I am, which has helped with my communication with others. So, and then here's the references at the bottom. So that's just a little bit about me and my cultural narrative, what I've kind of experienced before, during, and after this class, and what I am planning on working on in the future. I think this course has done tremendous amount of support for myself, and I'm sure all of you as well. So I wrote a paper in addition to this PowerPoint and this lecture that I'll post along with it as well. That's more detailed about kind of the bullets I have on my PowerPoint. I thank you guys for listening. I apologize, I'm not the best public speaker, but that's the only way I can get better is practice, right? Okay, everyone take care.